In a world of yearly release cycles, Mafia doesn't exactly fit the mold. Its debut title, the first Mafia, released in 2002.
First time for me too. There's a first time for everything.
8 years later, the sequel arrived, to a scene magnitudes different than that of its predecessor. 2K Czech had changed, games had changed, what it meant to be a Mafia game had changed. And now, with a new studio at the helm of the series, it's about to change once again.
So one of the cliches that I throw around a lot is like, if we're not scared, we're doing something wrong. And I look at it and go, again, and not to get up on a soapbox or be too, hoity-toity about it or whatever, but is it, we do feel like on some level we're creating art, right? And we want people to think about what it is that they're playing, and at the end of the day, have it resonate with them on, levels that go beyond just, the visceral moment of like, I shot a guy, right? And that's certainly in the game, and that's a big part of the game, but games are evolving, and we can tell better stories, we can elicit different types of emotion, we can elicit a wider range of emotion. So we want to do that, and I think we should be doing that. From the outset, we kind of were like, look, we can't be afraid to take some risks and some chances, otherwise it's just going to be another, Me Too game, and it's going to get lost in the shuffle. Building a new team, a new studio, new tech, new tools, an open world game, it's kind of the craziest things you can do in the games industry, right?
It's not often you get the chance to build a AAA studio from the ground up. It takes time, money, talent, and maybe most of all, trust. So when publisher 2K announced it was building a new internal studio in 2014 to work on AAA games, it came as a bit of a surprise. Now, in 2016, that studio is about to release its first game. Hangar 13 has pulled talent from across the world, built an experienced team, and taken the reins on an existing franchise, ready to make its mark on the Mafia series.
I worked at LucasArts for years and years, right? And I got to this place in my career. I started out as a writer in the industry, and so I came in kind of on the creative side.
Take them alive. The Emperor wants to execute them personally.
But I got really interested in the business side and the production side as well, because I felt like in order to really, do everything I wanted to do creatively, I had to at least understand the realities of production and know what was possible, and know when I was asking for something super insane or asking for something that was right at the edge of insanity, which is kind of where you want to be. And we got really fortunate because we were able to build the studio fairly quickly. Again, we brought over some folks from 2K Czech. We also were able to recruit from, several Bay Area development studios, LucasArts, where I worked for several years.
I saw Hayden do a GDC talk in 2008, which was after he'd finished The Force Unleashed.
I'm Hayden Blackman, I'm the project lead on The Force Unleashed, and today I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges that we face while working on The Force Unleashed.
And he did a big post-mortem. It was actually one of the bigger sessions at GDC 2008, and it was really impressive, and I kind of, at that point, he became apparent to me, and I sort of thought it'd be cool to work with him at some point.
The collective experience here and the number of games people have worked on, kind of across the studio is pretty impressive, and I've been happy with that because we're able to bring kind of ideas and, not just around the games, but, how games are made and how the studio should be run from a wide, variety of talent.
It's definitely not common to get the keys to a brand new AAA studio. The great thing about what will hopefully take place over the next couple of years is that we've shipped our first game together, which is a huge milestone as a team, and then we'll hopefully get the opportunity to take that to the next level, to expand, and then see what comes next.
It always has challenges, though. You look at, you're bringing together people from very different gaming cultures, but also world cultures, right? We have a pretty diverse team. We've got people from all over the world, and again, large contingent from 2K Czech, and folks from almost every developed country in the world working on the team. So so we've had to overcome a lot of kind of culture shock, and well, we did it this way here at this other studio, how do we want to do it here? But that's been really interesting, and I think again has let us be stronger in the long run because we get ideas from all these kind of varied groups. When I first started here at 2K and we, kind of started with the idea of Hangar 13, we knew early on we wanted to kind of do three things. One, we wanted to build proprietary tech. I mean, for me, that's where I'm most comfortable, and I'm always more comfortable building tech than trying to shoehorn a creative vision into, technology that already exists. We also knew that we wanted to do innovative open world games, and so, open world games that had some kind of twist to them.
You got real police incoming!
And then the third thing, which was really important to me, is we wanted to kind of advance the idea of the story, the player-driven experience, the player-driven narrative. So the notion that the player is kind of co-author in the overall experience. So, and we knew all that before we knew that we wanted to do a Mafia game.
A horrific scene here in Frisco Fields as one of the city's most prominent citizens, Remy Duval, was savagely murdered. Witnesses report he was bound to a cross and set on fire.
So we kind of went into it with first and foremost, what are we in love with the Mafia franchise? What are the things for us that really scream Mafia to us? And so we took a step back and we said, what are the kind of franchise pillars? If we were making a comic book or a movie or a novel, what are the things that are, have to be done in order for it to be a true Mafia experience? So, we came up with things like the city as a main character. We've got to treat the city as a main character.
Sorry.
It's about organized crime, so it's not about anarchy, it's not about lawlessness, it is about criminals, but it's about criminals within a hierarchy and in a system that has rules that have to be followed or there's consequences.
I want your money. This is good. I will bring you the money, and in exchange you will let me sell heroin in your city.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for us because obviously we've tried really hard to preserve all of the things that were considered great, that I considered great and Hayden considered great about the first games in the series and the second one.
It kind of put us in a box in a good way because it unified us, and you know the direction that you need to row, so to speak. And you also understand that there's certain things in the franchise that you can all rally around universally, and then kind of put your stamp on it and move the franchise forward.
When we brought some of the guys from kind of 2K Czech over, they had obviously worked on Mafia 2, so they had a lot of really good ideas about how the city should be built and what kind of constituted a Mafia game. But then because we want to evolve the franchise, so we kind of infused that with a lot of new ideas as well, and the collision of those two things I think has resulted in a really unique game.
But in terms of the franchise, New Orleans actually has a really long, rich history of organized Italian Mafia, going back into the 1800s. It actually started not long after the Civil War, and then carried forward up until, depending on who you ask, maybe even through today a little bit. But even through the 20th century, there was a mob boss named Carlos Marcello, who was this larger-than-life figure who ran the Italian Mafia in New Orleans. Eventually, actually was deported to Central America, and supposedly he walked back. So the government tried a lot to go after him, and they could never really get him in anything until later in his life. But they did manage to deport him, and then one day he just arrives back. And the legend is that he walked, which probably isn't true. But it makes for a good story.
Again, early on, we wanted to feature a city that was very diverse. We wanted a protagonist, in Lincoln Clay, who represented diversity that we don't normally see, I think, in the games industry.
You could thank me by calling me by my name. Die. Lincoln it is, then.
In terms of the pressure of launching a new Mafia game, just as a person, I kind of maintain a fairly consistent level of stress, just as a part of my life. But when we first started out, it may sound a little corny, but it's a big honor. I mean, the Mafia franchise has millions of fans around the world, and I think we all recognize that, and we wanted to do our best to keep the things that fans love about the franchise, but then move things forward and evolve them, with the addition of the open world.
But I think for us, we kind of took a step back and we said, look, we could get so wrapped up in how challenging this might be that we'll second guess ourselves at every turn. So we can't. We got to kind of just put that in the back of our minds and move forward.
developer once told me that you're only as good as your last game. Public perception hinges on recent memory, and the last thing you created could very well make or break your reputation. But what happens when you haven't made a game yet? What happens when a studio doesn't have a past? In the next 2 episodes of this video series, we'll explore the game's time and place in historical fiction, from the political turmoil of the late 60s to the creation of an American city that can highlight the complex and sometimes terrible issues that plagued the era. Blackman and his team may be nervous, but they're hopeful. As of now, they have a clean slate. As of now, there are only opportunities ahead. And they're waiting in the deep south, in an old city full of history, moonshine, and jazz.